Welcome back to the Scotti-BYTE channel, and this is Scott. So those of you that choose to run open source self-hosted applications on your home labs do so because of privacy, security, and flexibility. Customer service is very important for a company to thrive and build a strong reputation as well as a strong brand name. Sadly, customer service is an afterthought for many companies. And if you think about it, how many times have you contacted a customer support number where you've gotten a hold of an automated voice assistant and had to navigate 1, 2, 3, or even 4 levels of nested menus only to be greeted by an offshore customer support person that is simply reading a script? So, in lieu of that, social media seems to have become a dominant force in customer opinion, and social media does not always tell the true story, and what a surprise that is. So in this video, I'm going to discuss a self-hosted survey application that allows you to create your own self-hosted surveys that customers can take or users can take with a link or QR code that you provide, and it will be able to provide summarized results and graphs on what your customers are saying about your products and services. So with that in mind, I've entitled this presentation Self-Hosted Survey. So surveys are a great way to find out what your customers or users want from your products and services, as I just mentioned. LimeSurvey is an open source application that you can self-host in your own home lab or on your own private network. You could create multiple surveys and also groups of surveys, and those surveys can be either open or closed surveys. A closed survey would be amongst a group of people that you have defined and have specific accounts, whereas an open survey, anyone that has the link can go ahead and take the survey and provide you with results. So there are several types of questions and comments that you can have in a LimeSurvey survey, and we're going to go into what a few of those are and what they look like. And you can limit a survey, as I mentioned also earlier, to a group of authorized users if required. So let's go see an example of LimeSurvey and also learn how we can host it. So let's start by taking a look at the survey I've created. We can go to survey.scotti-byte.com, and I encourage you all to do so to answer my survey. It'll come up and tell me the following surveys are available. I've only created one, and it's called the Scotti-BYTE YouTube channel impressions survey. So we can pop up and you can see that it says Scotti-BYTE YouTube channel impressions. I click next, and then the questions come up. And this is a survey about the Scotti-BYTE channel. So the first question is, what is your favorite topic on the channel? And here you can choose any particular topic, but you can only choose one topic. So I'm going to choose LXD containers. And then the next question is, which of the following have you implemented on your network? And you check all that apply. And I'm going to say I have registered a domain name, and I also use reverse proxy, and I have at least one VLAN. I have used Docker containers. I've used LXC containers, and I've used LXD containers. And I've also used virtual machines. So I'm interested to see amongst the user population here, which all of those that you have used. And the next question is, where do you host your applications? On a dedicated server in my home lab, on a Raspberry Pi, on a network attached NAS, on a private virtual server in the cloud, on my main desktop or laptop computer, or I don't yet self-host any applications. In my particular case, I do it on a dedicated server, and I also do it on a network attached storage device and also on my desktop computer. So then the next question is, what is your favorite way to self-host an application, either on a dedicated bare metal platform, using Docker, using LexC, LexD, using virtual machines? So I'm going to say LexC, LexD because that's what I tend to cover on the channel mostly. And what topic would you like to see covered on the channel? This is free-form text. So I'm going to say really interesting stuff. Hopefully you all will come up with some ideas, and I will take that as input to create future videos. And finally, I submit the survey. And once I do a submit, it says, thank you, your survey responses have been recorded. Here I am at a terminal prompt, and I'm going to present the installation of LimeSurvey as a Docker container. But in order to do that, I'm going to go ahead and launch a LexD container in order to do that. And as a little bit of review, I'm going to do a LexC launch Ubuntu 22.04. I'm going to call the name of the container survey. I'm going to set the profile to default, and then the profile to bridge profile, which bridges it out to my main network. You'll want to watch my videos about LexD bridging to learn how to do that. And then I have boot.autostart equals to true and security.nesting equal to true, which will allow me to nest a Docker container inside of a LexD container. I'm giving this application 4,096 megabytes of memory, or 4 gigabytes. It probably doesn't require that much, but since the application uses a database as well as the application, I thought I'd give it a little bit more. And then I say on the particular host, it can use up to 20% of the available CPU as a cap. So I hit enter, and it's going off and creating my LexD container. It's retrieving it, creating the root file system, and starting the container. Now that my container is started, I'm going to go ahead and connect to the console with the LexC exec survey, which is the name of the container, and bash. If you already have a Docker host, you wouldn't have to go through these particular steps. But now that I'm connected to my LexD container, the first thing you want to do after creating a new container is a apt update and an apt upgrade. And notice I'm not providing the sudo command simply because we connected to root by doing the LexC exec. So now it's doing a sudo apt update and a sudo apt upgrade to make sure that our container has the latest updates. And it does right now, and it has properly updated. The next step I want to do is I'm going to add a username. So I'm going to do an add user Scott. I'm going to provide Scott with a password. And then I'm going to do a user mod -a capital G sudo Scott, which just puts Scott in the sudo group. And then I'm going to do the same command again to put Scott in the Docker group. But before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and install Docker so there is a Docker group. And I'm going to do that by going over to the Docker website and installing from their script, which is this curl command that I've covered many times before on the channel. And this will do an installation of Docker on this particular LexD container instance. Now that Docker's installed, I'm going to install Docker Compose with a sudo apt install docker-compose. And once Docker Compose is installed, then my final command that I'm going to do is add myself to the group. And that's going to be user mod -a capital G Docker Scott. Finally, I'm going to log into the Scott account, and I'm going to do that with a sudo Scott. And now that I'm signed into the Scott account, I will be able to install our application, which is very simple. I'm going to make a folder called LimeSurvey, and I'm going to cd into LimeSurvey. And then I'm going to edit a Docker Compose file that's going to contain the YAML code to create the application. Now that we're inside of the Nano editor for Docker Compose, I'm going to paste the commands in that we need in order to get this application to work, and they are as follows. So this is a pretty simple application. It really only has two built-in containers in it. One is the LimeSurvey code itself, followed by the MySQL code. So we have a we have the image command, we have a build command, we have port numbers. So if you're using port 80 on your Docker host, you can change the number to the left of the colon here and make it another port number so as not to have a conflict. In the LimeSurvey DB password here that I'm highlighting, you want to be able to change this to a password that is relatively secure. And then also you want to match that with the password down here in the environment variable for the MySQL root password. And in our case, we're just calling it DB password here, but choose something more secure. And then we want to have a admin user. I made that Scott, and then an admin password, which I made admin pass. So you're going to want something more secure. So I do a Control O to output the file, I hit enter, and I do a Control X to exit the editor. And finally, in order to bring the application up, I'm going to do a Docker Compose up -D, 2 ampersands, and a Docker Compose logs -F to follow the log file to see the progress of how this application is running. Since it appears that the application's up and running, I'll do a Control C and hit enter, and it should come back to the command prompt, or hopefully come back to the command prompt, maybe a couple Control C's, and it finally stopped. And I should be able to do a Docker PS, and you can see that the two apps are up and running, and they say they've been running for about a minute now. The first app being the LimeSurvey, and the second app being the Maria database, which is a variant of SQL. So now I want to do an IP space A to find out my Ethernet address, and you can tell that my Ethernet address is on my local area network 172.16.1.175. In my web browser, I simply type 172.16.1.175 and I hit enter. And it goes to the main LimeSurvey screen. At this particular point in time, I should be able to do a /admin on the end of that URL, 172.16.1.175/admin. And it will go into the administration screen where it will ask me for my password, and I can type in Scott, and then I can type in the password that I selected in the file for the Docker Compose, which in this particular case, if I remember correctly, was admin pass. So ADMIN and then PASS in upper characters, and then I do a login, and it should log in for me. So then we have an option to create a new survey. I'm not going to do that right now. It says, warning, please enforce SSL encryption in global settings and security after SSL is properly configured. So let's go over and do that next. So my internet service provider is domains.google.com. And so I'm going to go say create a new record. And the new record is going to be called test for the purposes of this exercise. I'm going to make it a CNAME record, and it's going to point to Scotti-BYTE.com. So Scotti-BYTE.com points to my WAN address through a dynamic DNS A record for Scotti-BYTE.com, which is defined by a dynamic DNS client running on my local network. So now I do a save on that test domain or subdomain. My next step is I log into Nginx Proxy Manager, which is hosted on my local area network, and I click on Add a Proxy Host, and I'm going to add the subdomain test.scotti-byte.com. I'm going to hit a tab to enter that into the field, and then I'm going to type in the address of the LimeSurvey, and as a reminder, that's 172.16.1.175. So I'm going to type in 172.16.1.175. You'll recall from my Docker Compose command that my port number I used was port 80. If you used a different port number, you would enter that here. The next thing I want to do is turn on block common exploits, and I'm going to turn on WebSockets support. And then I'm going to go into the SSL tab up here, click and say request a new certificate, and say I agree to the Let's Encrypt terms of service. I'm going to say force SSL and also HTTP/to support and click on save. It should go off and create the new proxy record, and it should also get an SSL self-signed certificate from Let's Encrypt, and when that's done, it should come back successfully. Okay, now that that's completed, I can go over here and simply say test.scotti-byte.com, and it should go into my LimeSurvey. And as you can see, it did. The next step that we want to do is we want to sign in to LimeSurvey once again here as the admin. So I say test.scotti-byte.com/admin. And now it asks for my username and password. My username again was Scott. And you'll recall that my password was admin pass. So I'm going to type in admin pass in uppercase and say log in. So now we want to go to edit global settings. We want to go over to the security tab, and in the security tab we want to go ahead and say force HTTPS, and when we do that we should be able to say save and close. We're going to go ahead and close this, and we'll go ahead and log out of the Scott account. I'm going to close this screen, close my Nginx reverse proxy screen, and I'm going to go ahead and log out of the one that I'm logged into locally. And this time I'm going to do a test.scotti-byte.com/admin, and we should not get the error about the certificate any longer or the SSL not being enforced. So I'm going to go ahead and type Scott as the username, and once again I'm going to type in admin pass as the password. This is just a throwdown copy of this thing. It comes up and reminds you that you can create a new survey right away. We'll go ahead and do that. Say create a new survey, and you can create the survey title and just say test survey or whatever you want to make it. And then we can say create the survey, and then you have to come up with question groups. So you can have my first question group. You can go off and edit that if you want. Call it whatever you want to call it, and then you can say, and there's an example question out here. We can edit that example question, and we can call it something like what is your favorite color? And then we can come up here and click long free text, and we can say we want it to be a multiple choice question, and we'll just say we want it to be a multiple choice, and we can say select that, and then go ahead and scroll down, and we can say red, and then add another option, green, and then we can add another option, yellow. And then we can say save and close. And then if we come up here to the option, go back to LimeSurvey, say test survey, and then say preview survey, it'll come up and say there's one question in the survey. It says test survey. I click next, and it says, what is your favorite color? And it says check all that apply. We probably should have set this up to be something different, in that we don't want to be able to select more than one as our favorite color, but we have many options in order to create that. Of course, we can have many questions, and it will always tell you the percentage you're done with the survey as you go from question to question. So this allows anybody to connect to test.scotti-BYTE.com to do that. Like I said, my real survey is at survey.scotti-BYTE.com. And when you go over here, there's the Scotti-BYTE YouTube channel impressions. You can click on it, and it says I've already completed this survey, because up front in this video I did complete that, and it looks like I need to update this email here, but that's basically how it works. If we go back into my survey that I established for you all to take, you can see that they come into a survey list here, and it will give a survey ID, and then I can click on my particular survey, and you can see that there's a lot of different settings for it, general settings, text elements, and so on down the line. I can go to the question list, and when I get into the question list, you can see what is your favorite topic on the channel, which of the following have you implemented on your network, where do you host your applications, and what topic would you like to see covered in the channel. So the first one is a radio list, the second is multiple choice, the third is multiple choice, and the last one is a format that they call long free text, where you can basically type in a textual answer. So you can make modifications and edit survey. Of course, I can't edit the survey now that it's live, but basically once you create a survey, then you have the option to make that survey live, and also whether or not you want it to appear up on the dashboard. And if I look at the dashboard here again, you can see that, well, this is the admin dashboard, but at the very top level, it comes up there and it says you can stop the survey as an admin, or you can run the survey manually. You can share this survey out to other people by giving them the URL. And you can also open a sharing panel. You can share it to Facebook, you can share it to Twitter, or you can generate the QR code, and people scan that QR code, they can go directly to your survey. And again, I'd like everybody out here to complete this survey and give me a little bit of an idea of where we want to go in the future and what things interest you. So in summary, we saw an example of a LimeSurvey. We learned how to self-host your own surveys with the open source LimeSurvey project. And be sure to take my survey at the following URL, or you can scan this QR code. Anyway, that's it for today. Please subscribe and like to the channel, and don't forget to hit that notification bell, and we'll see you next time.